Hey friends, welcome to the KidsMin Collective podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Ralston, and today's episode is called Reusing What Works, Making KidsMin Content Evergreen. So, in this episode, we're going to chat about what are some ways that you can recycle and reuse curriculum and event content over time so that essentially you're saving energy and increasing ministry sustainability. This is going to be extremely important as your ministry continues to grow and you don't have the ability to add more staff to your team. So, this will be helpful in kind of brainstorming and considering ways that you can do that. So, yeah, just be thinking, what are some of the areas of your curriculum prep or your event or your programming prep that you are realizing that you continue to get stuck or you're super caught up in time, taking up your time and eating up your time to prepare for those things. So if there are things that you're doing that you're like, oh my gosh, every single time I have to take so much time and energy to prepare for this, think about those moments. Just jot them down. Maybe keep a running list somewhere, a note on your phone or an email draft to yourself, or just a little sticky note on your desk that's like, hey, this is really draining when I'm having to recreate this content. Think about that in your weekly rhythms, in your monthly rhythms, in your kind of rotations of curriculum themes. So if you're doing certain lessons or certain, curriculum units, like, are there specific places that you're noticing that? And then let's just talk about, as we begin all of this, just kind of frame this idea of evergreen content. I know this gets used a lot in business terminology, and I've been in a lot of like small business workshops and things like that, and that is continuously the go-to. Build evergreen resources. So what does that look like in the context of kids ministry? So in the ministry world, that is probably going to look like finding the things in your curriculum and your events, basically that are not going to expire, but that can be reused. And maybe they get reused for something similar, but not exactly the same in the future. Maybe they get repeated year after year and you use that same thing all the time. Or maybe it's, I have this specific set of things and I can use them for multiple different activities or curriculum units. So just be thinking about what are the things that you can reuse. You don't have to buy again. You don't have to recreate or re-prepare. And utilizing those and maximizing the ability to use that evergreen content in the context of ministry. So, why does reusability matter in the context of KidsMin? If you have items and curriculum and things that are reusable, that's actually going to reduce burnout on your end. You are one person and you might have a team of people, but if you're having to recreate things either every single time they happen in a year, or you're having to recreate them every week or every month, those are the places that you are going to burn out because that's going to eat up your time in a way that doesn't allow you to do other relational ministry things. So if you find things that are reusable, it's going to help reduce burnout. It is also going to make your ministry planning more efficient. I am all about efficiency. That is like my go-to favorite thing. I'm like, how can I make this more efficient? I think through that lens all the time in personal life and in work life. But as that applies to you in kids ministry, if you have things that are reusable, it's actually going to make, ultimately at the end of the day, you more efficient because you won't have to recreate the wheel, reinvent an item, reinvent a specific thing. So create systems that allow you to reuse your content and your items and your prepped things, the tools that you have in place to execute curriculum. Put a system in place that allows you to be able to do that well and to be efficient in that. So it's also going to help you build a library of tried and true tools, right? So if you know, oh, kids love this activity, that's an activity you want to keep. That's a thing you want to have in your repertoire of activities that you can pull out, that you can use. Can you take that one activity and they love to play this one specific game. Can you adjust that to have a different meaning or a different reason why you're playing it for a different lesson? How do you reuse that thing or redo that thing that is tools that kids love, things that they've already enjoyed, items that they liked in curriculum, decorations that were really cool or very versatile. So consider how you can create that kind of library of the tools that are wins, right? They're hits in the classroom and kids love them. So, what are some of the things that you might be able to reuse and how can you do that? So a couple of kind of the categories or areas that you can be thinking about this. And again, maybe just have a note somewhere, a note on your phone, a sticky note that you can jot down these ideas as they come up and as you use them. Think about your curriculum visuals. So is there general decor or things that you're hanging up in classrooms that are specifically able to be used in multiple capacities? So if that's the case, then make a note that that's something you can use for this lesson and the lesson in 6 months from now. Consider some object lessons. So high impact activities, like I said, reframe them to work for one lesson versus another lesson. Kind of get creative with how you incorporate those into both lessons. Keeping supplies. So building a stock of things and like a closet of the things that you will use multiple times. If you have stick horses that you're going to use for multiple different events, actually, I think we didn't have stick horses. We had stick donkeys. We had a stick and we'd cut out a donkey cutout of their face and put that on the top of the stick like you would see a stick horse, right? But we use that donkey for multiple stories, Bible stories that included donkeys. So how can you create one thing and reuse that supply over and over for different activities or different Bible stories or different lessons? So stick horses, what are some things you use over and over? Might be fake fruit. There's multiple stories that include bread or fishes, or like those are the things you could buy a supply and reuse that thing over and over. Invest in purchasing that item. Some games and some templates of things. So rotating through different game formats, but with new content. So what are those templates of the things that kids really like or things that they didn't like? Or maybe that's different per age group, right? Maybe your young kids don't like a certain format of a game, but your older kids love it. So how do you make sure you're kind of keeping those in your tool belt of things that you can do? And then how do you rotate through those, right? Again, keeping good notes and knowing what kids like and don't like. Another thing that is kind of overlooked in this category is volunteer trainings and orientation documents. So we often focus on how do we make evergreen resources that are specific to curriculum, but also this is important for resources when it comes to training and onboarding. It does not make sense that every single year you have to recreate your entire presentation and all of your slides for volunteer training when you're communicating the same information. Make one master document, duplicate that from year to year, tweak it with what you need. If you want it to look completely different, change the theme, change the colors. You can adjust those things easily without recreating the content. So set yourself up some master documents, some things that every single time you do volunteer training, these are the things you need to go through. Create a system for where you can get those if you have paper copies versus digital copies. So keep those things in mind. What are the things that you will reuse over and over and over? Make a note, just track it for a week or track it for a month. Like, what are the things that I did and I used this already this month and I just needed it again? Or I've now looked this up 5 or 6 times. What are those things? Those would be the ones that you would want to try to figure out how you can reuse and set up a system to continuously use them. So some tips that will help you to create these evergreen resources is when you are preparing items for your ministry. Now, this is probably going to be more applicable if you're now, from this point forward, thinking about Evergreen resources and you haven't done that in the past. So obviously look back and say, what are the things that I can use that I already have that I could reuse in future things? But going forward, avoid getting overly theme specific purchases. So don't buy something that's specifically to one theme, but something that you could reuse, and that would be applicable to other themes. So consider that as you're processing through what your themes are, what your decorations are, what your activities and things will be related to that theme. Save and label everything. Put notes, make sure your tubs have labels of exactly what's in there. If you need a picture of it, you can have a picture of it. Make sure that you are saving documents that you've created in a way that you can find them on your server, database, whatever it is, wherever you store those things. Make sure that you have those, and also make sure that they are not saved only on your computer or your device. If your computer gets stolen, if it gets burnt up in a fire, if you lose it in a flood, you will lose everything that's on your computer. So make sure that you have that saved in a cloud or on a shared server or someplace where you can access it digitally without it being lost if your computer or your device is gone. So making sure to save and label physical things and creating digital folders. It's super helpful when you're doing this on the computer to create folders specific to events and or specific to the curriculum that you're doing, and then keeping all the different, if there's one specific Bible story, create a folder for that Bible story and all the activities that you're doing under that. So be thoughtful about how you're setting up that digital space. And then build an annual rhythm with repeatable touch points. So what are the times every year that you're going to do leader training? Are you going to do that once a quarter? Are you going to do that once a semester, once a year? How do you find those? What is your event rhythm and schedule? What is your curriculum rhythm? Are you planning curriculum a year in advance, 6 months in advance, month to month? Like, what does that look like? How are you doing that? And consider how that would work for you to find those evergreen content pieces. So I just want to remind you, as I have said many times before, again, I always tell you this too, that I am speaking to the choir, preaching to the choir, but it doesn't have to be Pinterest perfect. That is just not the goal we're going for. Take that from somebody who really wants to make things Pinterest perfect and to be the one who you would post the picture of my event or my, ministry decoration and everybody wants to copy it. I definitely fall into that group. I like things to be done well and done with excellence, but just because you want them to be done well and with excellence doesn't mean that they're actually Pinterest perfect. So avoid that being your criteria. Really just be purposeful in how you are preparing content and how you are making things to be evergreen that can be reused from year to year or cycle to cycle. So if you want to take a look at your curriculum and your programming to find some places that you can begin to make evergreen content, then let's hop on a call. I have a free 30-minute consulting call. All you have to do is sign up to get the link to that. So if you find it, you can find it on my homepage and book the call there, or there is a link to the page to book on my calendar in the description of this podcast. But I would love to chat with you about what that would look like and how we can really get your ministry to a more efficient place to be able to have content that can be reused. So I love to think like this. I love to think efficiency and strategy in this, and I would love the opportunity to work with you to do that specific to your ministry. So I hope you have a great week, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thanks for joining me today on the KidsMin Collective podcast, where we're all about nurturing leaders and impacting generations. Before you go, I want to invite you to take the next step in growing your ministry with confidence. I've created a free KidsMin Leader Assessment designed just for leaders like you. It walks you through the 5 key areas: purpose, people, programming, physical space, and procedures helping you celebrate what's going well and uncover where there's room to grow. Whether you're a brand new leader or you've been leading for years, this tool will give you a clear picture of where your ministry stands and where it could go with a little strategy and support. Head over to ozarkministryconsulting.com to get started. You'll find the assessment right on the homepage, quick, simple, and packed with insight. And if this episode encouraged you, share it with a fellow leader or leave a review. We're better when we grow together. Until next time, keep leading well, keep loving big, and remember, your ministry matters.